Welcome back to Growth Lab Sessions. I'm Joao, CEO of Stealth White Label Agency, and today we're talking about most service businesses and agencies underestimate, which is building a media infrastructure. Our guest today is Vic Martinez, founder of Breadcrumbs. And what makes Vic different is that he spent the last 7 years not just refining a framework to produce content, but to build authority-driven ecosystems. If you look at his websites and his brand, he is showered with testimonials and people that love his work. And he's done amazing content for all of his clients. Check out his page. It's super awesome. You see a lot of his work and it's really beautiful. And now he's taking this framework into a custom GPT to help founders build and launch their own shows with clarity and structure. Vic, welcome to Growth Lab Sessions. Are you ready to take it to the lab?
Ready, baby.
All right, awesome. So, just to remind everyone, this is the season 2 of Growth Lab Sessions. We are now doing more of a class, right? And so it's a mini class where our guest is going to be teaching you how to get something done. And so in this class, it's going to be a 3-part series. Vic is going to be with us. Each of the classes is going to be around 15 to 20 minutes. So make sure that if you watch a class this week, next week we're going to be launching the class number 2 of this 3-part series. And for class number 1, we're doing podcast as an authority asset. Vic, I'm going to be asking you some questions here, and then we'll get into it. And you share with us all of your knowledge and wisdom. If you need to share any screen, anything like that, please do so. Otherwise, we're here to learn from you. Now, most agency owners think about launching a podcast as content marketing, right? I know I did so. I have like 30 plus episodes and I've been doing like content marketing, but you think about it as infrastructure. Now, what's the difference between launching a podcast as a marketing channel versus building it as an authority asset?
I get this question every day, and everybody wants a podcast, right? Because the barrier to entry seems very easy. It's 2 people talking on a microphone, right? From the outside in. It's like rapping. Everybody thinks, oh, I could just get on a microphone and write some rhymes, right? Easy. But it's not that easy. And I still think that a podcast is the most leveraged digital asset you can own, even in 2026. And if you build it correctly, it's the highest ROI digital asset you can build in 2026. And the difference is really that a marketing channel or a normal person who thinks they're really interesting, they'll look at a podcast and ask, like, how can I grow downloads? How can I make money from this podcast as a product? My preference, I prefer a leverage podcast as an authority asset. A leverage podcast isn't content, it's infrastructure. And it really drives, instead of asking how do I grow downloads, how do I grow sponsorship deals, how do I grow views and get monetized on YouTube, a podcast as an authority asset, a leverage podcast, really asks, like, how do I drive positioning, how do I grow relationships, and how do I grow revenue with this vehicle? And I think you do a really good job at this, because your product and your offer with Stealth is exactly what I need and exactly what other agency owners need. And you're smart. You're leveraging it the right way. There's other ways you can leverage it, and I'll get into that later. But you're leveraging it the right way by using this tool to meet with us, build a relationship on Instagram, on socials, and then now I more than likely want to work with you, because now I know who you are. I'm rooting for you. There's a common ground that resonates with me, and you're leveraging it to build relationships, and then that'll drive traffic to your service and your offer. I'm going to give you money because I like you now.
It does work in that way to some extent, right? Like personally, I have worked with guests of the podcast, that never really said anything to me in terms of working together until after the podcast. So it has worked like that, but it hasn't worked in a way where I just have a funnel full of calls from agency owners that are watching my podcast. It's been more of like the guests, right, that get in touch. I haven't felt like, even with a lot of views on the videos, I haven't found a way to really get these people watching right now to like want to book a call and book my services, right? So
Do you know why? Have
why?
you figured out why?
No, I
Have you
haven't.
figured out why? Oh, me, just from launching almost 100 podcasts in the past couple of years, I think it's because you do a really good job at making the person that you're talking to feel special, right? But then it becomes all about that person, and then you chime in and you spitball a little bit, but the audience doesn't have time to fall in love with you and trust you and learn about you and what you do. It's more about the guest. So I think that's the tweak you need to do.
Like what?
I think it needs to be, instead of you interviewing me, I think this class idea is genius. Right now, there's practical use. It works as a YouTube video, a course module, and you can put it in a community, and it works as a podcast. That's great, but I don't think it's going to push calls into your pipeline. You still need to adjust it, and it needs to be around an idea. And it's almost like you have the guest is like your co-moderator, your co-facilitator, versus the guest is the topic. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I got to think about that further to like come up with another model. Maybe that will be season 3. But I kind of I have that inkling where it's like I'm not saying too many things. It's mostly questions about the guest. And then like, who is Joao, right? I'm not spitballing enough. I'm not like telling the audience about myself enough. I'm making it too much about the guest. So maybe there's just something I can start trying in season 2 and then sprinkle and then really make it happen in season 3. Now, something that I've heard a lot from like even starting the podcast in season 1, it's like podcasts never make it past like episode 20th, right?
6.
And 6th. Well, and you've said until like podcasts fail before episode 1, right? Now, what are like the 2 to 3 foundational mistakes that founders make before starting a show? And how does your 7-year framework prevent that?
Good question. So typically, I get discovery calls put on my calendar a lot. I'm not saying that to rub it in. I'm just saying, and usually on those discovery calls, I have the person basically Shark Tank their podcast idea to me, right? And I vet basically they're convincing me that they have a solid podcast idea. What I'm really looking for is how they're going to monetize it. If they want to monetize the podcast as the product because they think they're really interesting, or because they have access to celebrities or something, and or influencers, that's going to fail in my head automatically. I think the 3 mistakes that, if I had to iron it down to 3 mistakes, I would say that the first one is that they don't attach it to an offer. There's no back end. There's no value ladder. There's just conversations. And I think you're there, Joao, is that you could just tweak it a little bit to get there, but it can't just be conversations with interesting people, right? Or interesting topics. It needs to have a reason, and it needs to have a monetary reason at some point. Second, I would say there's no overall season strategy, which you're doing great because the season 2 has an entire strategy. And that just comes down to like random episodes or just creating random outcomes, right? So random episodes are creating random outcomes. They don't have an overall a connecting thread between all the episodes. And if they don't have a connecting thread, they don't have connecting value, and then they don't know their audience, and they're not providing anything for their audience. And then if I had to say the third mistake, it's probably getting hung up in optimizing for production instead of positioning. Like they're thinking about, what microphone do I need? What lights do I need? What recorder do I need? Am I going to do Zoom? Am I doing Riverside? And they just think about that more, and then they get their dopamine hits, and they exhaust themselves from just the bare minimum before even putting all that thought into positioning. So a leverage podcast, if you do it right, starts backwards. Like you want to ask, like, what does it sell? What objections need to be answered? What customer journey you want to take the person through, either in one episode or throughout the whole season. What belief needs to shift? That's my new motto. Is like, or my new question that I ask every day is like, what belief needs to shift before someone buys or subscribes or clicks on your becomes a lead in your pipeline, and then you build the season around that.
Cool. And then in terms of like the 7-year framework, what is that?
So we've been doing this for as a company 7 years, but freelancing almost more than 10. And throughout all that, we figured out like a recipe and it has to keep evolving, right? Because podcasts keep changing. But in our framework and our recipe, when we launch a podcast, it's not like, okay, come in and you can record for an hour and it's $150 an hour. I don't let anyone rent our podcast studio. They need to be a client and be part of our program. And that's not just for churn or for reoccurring revenue. It's just for success, because I don't want to entertain people who are just hobbyists. Like that, there's other places for that are much cheaper. So in our framework, we've put together a belief shifting recipe where we take a person from, hey, I think I have an idea for a podcast, or B, hey, I have a coaching offer, or I have a product, or I have a store, or I have a service, but I need to build an audience. I need to get more customers, right? We take that to transforming them over to driving leads and sales into their pipeline. From there to there. I mean, I can go, if we could spend the entire hour on the 7 framework, but I know you have some questions specifically around that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Well, like so far, this is getting me to start. A lot of questions are starting to come to mind, which is exactly like the intention of this podcast here. Because you're telling me about a lot of mistakes that people do, some mistakes that I'm doing with my podcast, and so I'm starting to ask myself, like, what is the way to do it? And now we're moving on to so pretty soon we're going to be moving into class 2, and that class is going to be about building and launching without overcomplicating. So all of the step-by-step in the first 30 days, right? Like, so Vic was talking about, you shouldn't be focused so much on the camera, the gear, whatever. You should focus more on positioning and like more of the foundation aspects. And that's what we're going to be getting into in the next class. So if you got this far, make sure that you subscribe and like the episode. Come back next week so you can watch class 2 with Vic Martinez.